Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining me today for my presentation, Confessions of a Low-Carb GP, Living with High Cholesterol. I'm going to take you on a personal journey, one that's challenged what I thought I knew, reshaped how I practice medicine, and taught me how to live with uncertainty and confidence. I'm Dr. Nelum, a GP working in Brisbane, Australia, with over 25 years of experience. And I absolutely love what I do. But it's only in the last 4 years that my work has been life-changing. That's when I discovered the world of metabolic health. Since then, everything about how I practice has shifted. And finally, I've been able to help patients not just manage symptoms, but actually improve their lives. It's been the most rewarding chapter of my career. I wear a few other hats. I'm a doctor educator, and I've been teaching doctors since 2017, running workshops on contraceptive options. And I'm also the founder of Whole Food Revolution, a space dedicated to helping women take back control of their health through food, lifestyle, and mindset. And I will talk about it a little before I end. I was born and raised in Sri Lanka, in the beautiful island of Sri Lanka, where the food is incredible. And yes, I am totally biased. And in 1990, I moved from Sri Lanka to Scotland to study medicine. I became a GP in the year 2000 and worked as a partner in a practice in the north of England for 7 years before moving to Australia in 2009. And those first few years were tough. Adjusting to a new country yet again, starting over in a different work environment, and trying to make new friends wasn't easy. And my husband and I, we built and established Narangba Doctors in 2012. As a family, we were active and always on the go. But food, that wasn't really a priority. We mostly ate what was quick, easy, and tasty. And like most people, we ate for convenience and comfort without really thinking too much about nutrition or long-term health. And then perimenopause hit. And this was in my late 40s and early 50s. And despite doing everything right, I could feel that my body was changing, especially around my middle. And I was starting to look more and more like my mum, apple-shaped with those dreaded love handles. I tried to hide it with wearing loose clothes, but deep down, I wasn't comfortable. My sleep was terrible. I was waking up 3 to 4 times a night, snoring loudly. I mean, my poor husband, and feeling exhausted. I became snappy, irritable, and more emotional than I'd ever been, and it simply wasn't like me. But what scared me most was the brain fog and the word finding difficulties. And I know that most of you postmenopausal women out there know what I'm talking about. And my memory was getting worse. I'd walk away from my work computer and forget everything: medical conditions, medications, even simple tasks. At one point, I wondered if I was forgetting how to be a doctor. Looking back, I realized how many little reminders I'd set around my computer and workstation just to keep functioning. And I thought I was doing everything right. I exercised intensely, mostly every day, running, boxing, HIIT, you name it, I was doing it. I ate what I believed was a healthy diet, low fat and balanced, and I genuinely thought I was taking care of myself. And then came the wake-up call. My blood results showed prediabetes, and the rest of my metabolic markers pointed towards a high risk of heart disease. I was devastated. it hit really hard because of my strong family history of type 2 diabetes. My mum was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes at the age of 52, and her siblings all passed away with diabetes related complications. And here I was, a GP. I teach other people how to stay well. I couldn't believe it. Despite doing everything right, my health was getting worse. Something had to change. But what? I started digging into why I was struggling so much with my weight and energy. Even though I was doing all the right things, all the things that I was telling my patients to do, exercising, eating low fat, and that's when I stumbled across something that changed everything for me. I discovered insulin. Not just the diabetes link we learn about in medical school, but its powerful role in metabolism, weight, inflammation. I started learning how our bodies respond to the food we eat, how a low carb lifestyle can calm that metabolic chaos. It was like a light switch went off. Everything finally made sense. But shifting to a low carb lifestyle wasn't easy for me. I grew up in Sri Lanka. After all, rice and roti were part of my life. What would I eat? How would I socialize? Would my family understand? But, I took it one step at a time, cutting back on carbs, increasing my protein, and staying curious. And then something amazing happened. For the first time in years, I wasn't hungry all the time. I didn't need to snack. I wasn't thinking about food 24/7. And just after a few days, I noticed my clothes were, fitting a little bit better. I felt lighter, my waistbands were a little bit looser, and my energy was back. And then something totally unexpected. My husband said, Nelum, you're not snoring anymore. I had snored since my early 30s, and now gone, just like that. My sleep improved, my mind felt clearer, my weight dropped, and when I repeated my blood tests a few months later, I had reversed my prediabetes and every single metabolic marker had improved. And the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I had found a way forward. Even though I felt absolutely amazing, there was one blood test result that really caught me off guard. My LDL cholesterol. It shot up. You can see here, before I started my low carb lifestyle in August 2021, and in 2018, you can see that my LDL was, well, it was acceptable. But you can see by November, my levels had started to go up and they were on the rise. And I was confused and worried. I didn't know what was going on. No, I hadn't realized that this could happen. And as a doctor, this was especially confronting. Everything I'd learned about cholesterol, especially LDL, was that it was harmful, even toxic. I had been taught that high LDL was a major cause of heart disease. So naturally, seeing my own levels rise so sharply was extremely worrying. And in fact, I haven't put all my blood results, but now my LDL cholesterol sits at about 9. So it is pretty high. My doctor was concerned too. She hadn't seen a case like mine before, so she ordered a range of blood tests, including something called an LDL subfraction test. And this test breaks down LDL cholesterol into different types based on particle size. Um, so there are actually 7 subtypes of LDL, and they're classified by how big or small the particles are. This matters because the the larger, fluffier LDLs, LDL particles called large buoyant LDL, which is LDL 1 and 2, are more likely, are considered less harmful. And on the other hand, the small dense LDL, which are LDL 3 to 7, are considered, these are damaged LDL and are linked to higher risk of heart disease. So when my results came back, my LDL profile was classified as type A, and which means that my LDL was mostly large buoyant, and it states at the bottom there, this carries no additional cardiac risk. What a massive relief. Um, I also went on to have a CT coronary calcium score, and this is a scan that's considered one of the best tools for assessing heart disease risk. And it's especially helpful in people over the age of 45. And this test looks for calcium deposits in the arteries that supply blood to the heart. Calcium builds up. Calcium builds up as a sign of damage. It's a historical damage. So over time, calcium builds up in arteries that are damaged. And if the inner lining of the arteries, which we call the endothelium, becomes damaged due to things like inflammation, high blood pressure, stress, then plaque begins to form. And part of that plaque includes calcium. So the more calcium found in the coronary arteries, the higher the likelihood of somebody having a heart disease. And the results are given as a score. The score of 0 means that there's very little heart disease. A score of between 1 and 100 suggests mild buildup and a low to moderate risk of heart disease. And a score of over 100 indicates moderate to high risk. And it depends on age and other factors. Basically, the higher the score, the greater the risk. And when I received my results, I was devastated. My score was over 150, which placed me in the moderately high risk. And the recommendation was to consider treatment. And this was especially concerning for me as someone of South Asian background. And unfortunately, people of South Asian ethnicity are known to be at higher risk of heart disease. And it often shows up earlier than in the general Caucasian population. And this scan result reflected a pattern I'd seen all too often in my community. Heart disease being detected in the prime of life, sometimes even before symptoms appeared. So that was me. And even though I felt well and had made major lifestyle improvements, this result reminded me that family history, ethnicity, and past damage can still carry weight. It was really upsetting. By this point, my GP decided it was time for me to see a cardiologist for further investigation and management. She referred me to someone she trusted, someone she felt would understand and be supportive of my lifestyle choices. So off I went to see the cardiologist, and from there I was sent for more testing. I had an echocardiogram and a stress echocardiogram. And I don't know how many of you have had a stress echocardiogram, but I found it very interesting because I had to run at high speed on an incline without a bra. It was an interesting experience, let me tell you. Um, but the good news was that I did really well on the stress echocardiogram. My echocardiogram was fine, and my heart handled this stress just fine. It was really reassuring. So I felt really positive after seeing my test results. But when I went back to the cardiologist, all he said was that I needed to take a statin. So statin is a medication that lowers LDL cholesterol. That was it. No real discussion, no acknowledgement of everything I'd done to improve my health, just a prescription. But I wasn't convinced that statins were the right thing for me, and I was really frustrated. So I asked my GP to refer me for a second opinion. And we chose another cardiologist who we hoped would be more familiar and with the low carb lifestyle and possibly be a little bit more open minded. But when I went to see him, I was told exactly the same thing, that none of the lifestyle changes really mattered, that LDL cholesterol was the only thing that counted, that the only way to lower my heart disease risk was to take a statin. It was devastating because I had worked so hard. I had transformed my lifestyle, reversed prediabetes, lowered my blood pressure, improved every important metabolic marker. And to be told that none of that was relevant, that all my efforts meant nothing, it was incredibly disappointing. And for the first time, I truly felt what most patients probably feel when their hard work is overlooked. When we as doctors don't take the time to really listen, to recognize the full picture of someone's health journey, it can leave them feeling ignored and disheartened, just like I felt. That experience changed me. It gave me a deeper understanding of what it means to be on the other side, to be the patient, and how powerful it is to be heard, seen, and understood. I decided to take a deep dive into cholesterol and statins to really understand what was going on. And what I found shook me. I still remember driving to work, listening to a talk on cholesterol. What I was hearing went against almost everything that I had believed about cholesterol and statins. I felt like crying. If I was wrong about this, something that I had trusted for years, what else was I wrong about? It was confronting and painful to realize the foundations of what I'd learned might need to be unlearned, or at least seriously questioned. I started asking, who can I trust? What's actually true? How do I move forward? This wasn't just a professional shift, it was deeply personal. Letting go of deep-seated beliefs, unlearning, relearning, and making peace with not always having clear answers. And what I discovered about statins truly blew me away. So, do you know the answer to this question? So, why do most people take long term medication? Surely one major reason is to live longer, right? That was my assumption. But when I dug into the data, I was stunned. The actual increase in lifespan from taking statins isn't measured in years or months, it's just days. Days. I just couldn't believe it. And just let's have a look at you know what the clinical trials show. So according to a large review of clinical trials, statin use for primary prevention, that means people without existing heart disease, only added a median of 3.2 days of life. And only 1% of people will actually benefit from taking a statin in this context, so in primary prevention. And that's assuming there are no side effects, which we know isn't always the case. It's not that statins don't have a role, but it's worth questioning whether they're truly the answer for everyone, especially when there are more personalized and lifestyle-based options. Maybe for some people, 1% benefit from a statin is worthwhile if there are no side effects. But let's talk about the side effects of statins because they really matter. Research shows that they can increase your chance of developing type 2 diabetes, especially in women. And one study, the Women's Health Initiative, even found a 71% increase in the chance of developing diabetes in postmenopausal women. They can also affect your memory and thinking, with some people actually improving when they stop taking them. Muscle pain is another big one, so much so that 40% of people taking them all stop taking them altogether. And here's what really hit home for me. Only 1 in 100 people actually get benefit from taking a statin. And for a woman like me, there's no strong evidence of benefit at all. And I think about it. I started my own health journey because of my strong family history of type 2 diabetes. So the big question for me was, did I want to take a medication that might increase my risk of diabetes? It just didn't make sense anymore, especially when there are safer, more effective lifestyle changes that could do so much more without the side effects. After much soul searching and talking with people in the low carb community and weighing up all the options, I decided not to go on medication. I decided instead to choose, I chose instead to keep focusing on lifestyle changes, eating well, moving more, and doing everything I could to support my health naturally. Exercise plays a big role in that. And this year, since last year, I've been focusing on building strength, doing Pilates, walking, strength training, and a couple of quick HIIT sessions each week. And I feel stronger and more energized just doing this strength training. I spend time outside in the sunshine. I meditate most mornings for about 20 minutes whenever I can. And I go on a 9-day silent meditation retreat every year. I've been doing that for, I think, 7 or 8 years now. And it's for me, it's one of the best things that I can do to manage stress. Getting enough sleep is really important and it's something that I prioritize. And then spending time with friends and family, that connection, it really I find important. So it's finding joy, calm, and connection. For me, good health means looking after both all my mind, looking after my mind, body, and heart. So I kept digging. Why had my LDL cholesterol gone up so much, even though all my other metabolic markers had improved? That question led me to the incredible work of Dave Feldman, an engineer from the US, and his hypothesis, the Lipid Energy Model, was a game changer. And suddenly everything started to make sense. The pieces fit, and it connected the dots in a way that explained what I had been seeing in my own body. I'm genuinely excited to share what I've learned with you because it challenged everything that I thought I knew and opened a door to a whole new way of thinking about cholesterol. So here we go. So I'm sorry about the complexity of this diagram, but this diagram shows how your body moves energy around depending on the type of diet you're eating. So in the top half here, this is somebody eating a mixed diet. So eating carbs and fat, okay, which is basically a typical Western diet. So your body uses glucose and fatty acids from the fat in your diet as energy. And energy gets delivered to your muscles and organs through different carriers, like the chylomicrons. So these are carriers that carry the fat to around the body, chylomicrons, and VLDL, very low density proteins. And the liver and the fat help process and release energy gradually. So VLDL carries mostly fat made in the liver and some cholesterol to be distributed throughout the body. And once the fat has been released into the fat stores, within a few steps, it's converted into LDL, um, which predominantly carries cholesterol. And LDL gets formed, so basically LDL gets formed as a byproduct, but in relatively moderate amounts. So this is in the mixed diet. Now, in the bottom half, this is somebody who's eating a low-carb, high-fat diet. So this is much less of the glucose and more of the fat. So on a low-carb diet, your glucose intake drops and your body shifts from now burning fat, shifts to burning fat for energy. And more VLDL. So here, because the body is now using fat as energy, there's more VLDL particles produced, and by that same token, more VLDL means more LDL is also produced. So this doesn't necessarily mean that there's danger. It could just reflect that your body is working efficiently on fat as fuel. So on a low-carb, high-fat diet, your body relies much more on fat for fuel, which leads to more fat movement within the body, within the blood. And that increases LDL cholesterol, even though and so that's what happens. And this model suggests that high LDL on a low carb diet may not mean that you're unhealthy. Instead, it could mean a normal response to fat as your main energy source. So I found this fascinating. And what we see then in some people who go on this way of eating is you see this low carb lipid triad. Actually, not some people, most people have this low carb lipid triad. And what you see is that you see a high HDL and a low triglycerides. So low triglycerides and high HDL. And LDL cholesterol isn't always raised, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So the takeaway is that high HDL, so this triad is linked with low insulin, low VLDL, and low remnant lipoproteins. And so, but the question is, what does this mean in the long term? Will it associated with low ectopic fat, low risk of cardiovascular disease, low all-cause mortality? We don't yet have all the answers because there haven't been studies testing this at this point in time. The other thing that Dave Feldman hypothesized is about the lean mass hyperresponders. So lean mass hyperresponders responder phenotype, and what it shows that of those going on a low-carb diet, a proportion of them will see a dramatic increase in the total and LDL cholesterol, and these we call hyperresponders. And out of those, another percentage will see a specific pattern that includes the highest total and LDL cholesterol of all, and these are called lean mass hyperresponders. So lean mass hyperresponder is somebody who has a lower BMI, so BMI of less than 25, is on a low-carb diet, so they have low glycogen stores. This is how glucose is stored in the body. They have low body fat because they're actually using the fat to fuel, and they're pretty athletic and active, and they have high energy demands. And this person also having this particular pattern of lipids, so an LDL of above 5.1 or higher, a HDL of over 2.2 millimoles or higher, and triglycerides of less than zero point 0.8 or lower. Now, I don't fall into the lean mass hyperresponder. I have a very high LDL and my triglycerides are under zero point 0.8, but my HDL is not as high. So I am a hyperresponder. I'm not a lean mass hyperresponder. So it's really important to remember that this pattern is seen in those with a BMI of less than 25. We don't usually see it in people who have a higher BMI, so who are overweight and obese. And why is this important? Low carb and keto diets are more popular than ever. People are turning to them to improve weight, energy, blood sugar, and manage certain chronic disease. And for many, it works. Almost every health marker improves. But then something unexpected. LDL cholesterol spikes, and it raises questions and fear. That's where understanding the lipid energy model becomes essential. It offers scientific, common sense explanation of why this happens when you're running on fat for fuel. And there's already a growing community searching for answers. Just the Facebook page for lean mass hyperresponders has over 13.4, 13,000 members. And this is likely just a small glimpse of how many people are truly affected. So this isn't a fringe issue. It's a widespread pattern that needs attention, clarity, and science, not panic. I mean, just the other day, one of my colleagues came in to show me a cholesterol reading of one of her patients. This patient had an LDL cholesterol of 14. And luckily, we discussed this lean mass hyperresponder, so she didn't panic and she knew that this was what could happen. So, are statins warranted in this population? So, that's a good question. So let's talk about one of the most well-known statin trials, the 4S study from 1994. It was a solid trial, even though it was run and analyzed by a pharmaceutical industry. And they found a 4% reduction in mortality in high-risk patients. But when the data was looked at again, I think it was 7 years later, it became clear that the benefits were mostly seen in people with metabolic syndrome. So that means those people that had high metabolic syndrome is really diagnosed as high triglycerides and low HDL. So the benefit was people who had high triglycerides, low HDL, and in this they have added high LDL as well. But for people who had high LDL, but low triglycerides and high HDL, so high LDL, low triglycerides and high HDL, these are the lean mass hyperresponders. There was no benefit. Okay. So, in other words, context matters. So, it's not just about your LDL being high, it's about the overall picture of your metabolic health. So, the big message here is the environment that your LDL lives in is your insulin levels, your triglycerides, your inflammation, your stress. They matter more than just the LDL number. In 2022, a paper was published by Dr. David Diamond, Ben Bickman, and Australia's own Dr. Paul Mason. And they argued that statins may not be necessary for people on low-carb diets with high LDL levels. Why? Because LDL alone isn't a strong predictor for heart disease. Now, I'm going to say that again. LDL alone isn't a strong predictor of heart disease, and low-carb diets often improve many key factors like insulin resistance, blood sugar and blood pressure, triglycerides, metabolic syndrome. Clinical trials haven't shown clear benefit from statins in people who have this typical low carb profile, the high LDL, low triglycerides, and high HDL. So the bottom line is if your heart health markers are great overall, high LDL alone doesn't mean you're at risk. And oops. And the game changer for lean mass hyperresponders by Dave Feldman and team was just released in April this year. This study, this study with the title "Plaque Begets Plaque," ApoB does not. So this they followed this is a crowd-funded study, so no drug companies were involved, and the study followed lean mass hyperresponders, healthy, lean, active people who see this big rise in LDL for 12 months to see what happens to their plaque levels in the coronary arteries. And what they found was that these LDL increases are diet related, they're not genetic. And same, it was the same for me. Prior to going on a low carb lifestyle, my LDL was within what you would expect to be normal. The actual risk of plaque wasn't linked to LDL or ApoB, and this is a cholesterol related protein, which is in the lineage of the VLDL, LDL cholesterol. Instead, the best predictor of plaque progression was how much plaque was already there to begin with, and measured by CT coronary calcium scores. And so the problem is, what does this mean? What does this mean for me? Sorry, what does this mean for you? If you're healthy but have high LDL on a low carb diet, your true risk may depend more on imaging, like a calcium score, than your cholesterol number alone. But this is my problem. I have plaque on my CT coronary calcium score. So, what does this mean for people like me? And I was listening to a podcast with Dave Feldman just the other day, and he was speaking of another study that he's planning to do. And he'll be looking at lipid lowering therapy and plaque progression in this group. So it's very exciting, and it's just the beginning of a new era in metabolic health and understanding cholesterol. And I'm waiting patiently for this. So, over the past few years, I've spoken with many cardiologists and metabolic health experts at various low carb conferences, most recently at Low Carb USA in Boca Raton in January of this year. And I've been asking the same question. What should someone like me do? Someone with a moderately high risk of heart disease who has since completely transformed their lifestyle, improved their nutrition, and seen major improvements in all their metabolic markers. And the truth is, there is no clear answer. There's no consensus among the experts. For people like me who fall into this particular group, the path forward isn't straightforward. So now it becomes about learning to live with uncertainty. We don't have all the answers. And until more research is done, that's just the reality. For me personally, I've chosen to focus on staying positive about the future and doing everything I can to lower my remaining risks, especially those related to stress and cortisol. Because I believe that chronic stress and elevated cortisol have a much bigger impact on our health than we currently understand. And I think we're just scratching the surface of this issue. That's why I make a conscious effort to manage my stress and will continue to monitor my own health with regular checkups and further investigations over time. But I want to be clear. This is my personal journey. This is what feels right for me. It's not a recommendation for anyone else. You have to decide what works best for you based on your own risks, your comfort level, and what makes sense in your life. So, this was a deeply personal decision. Tailored to my own health needs and circumstances. And I want to emphasize that it is not a recommendation for others. Each of us has a different journey, and what works for one person may not work for another. So I'd like to end this presentation by taking a moment to tell you about Whole Food Revolution, the heart of the work I do outside of general practice. Whole Food Revolution is all about holistic health coaching for women over 40 who are ready to reclaim their energy, their confidence, and their sense of control over their bodies and health. I work alongside Ronit Barras, a wonderful happiness and lifestyle coach who you'll actually be hearing on this seminar. And together, we support women with nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset guidance. Because at Whole Food Revolution, we believe that true health starts from within when science, mindset, and lifestyle all come together in a way that feels empowering and sustainable. So at Whole Food Revolution, we offer a variety of programs with a powerful blend of nutrition, mindset, and lifestyle coaching, from one-day programs to ongoing monthly sessions to our signature 12-week group program. And we have also got multiple online courses that are self-guided. And you can learn more on our website, Facebook page, and YouTube channel. And I'm sure that Tracey will put all of this in the show notes. My own health journey and the confusion that I faced around cholesterol sparked a deep passion to learn more. And I found myself questioning outdated advice and wanting better answers, not just for myself, but for the women I support every day. And that's why I created The Truth About Cholesterol, a self-guided online course to cut through the noise and give you clear, science-backed guidance you can actually use. So as a special thank you gift to everyone attending this amazing lived experiences seminar, we're offering 25% off The Truth About Cholesterol. And this exclusive offer is available just until the end of July. And please use the discount code LIVING25. And we'll also put the discount code in the show notes as well. And yeah, and you can scan the QR code to take you straight to the course. And in this course, so this course is for you if you are unsure about what to believe about cholesterol and heart health. You're taking or considering cholesterol medication, wanting to make smart, informed choices based on you and not fear. Curious about how diet and lifestyle really affect your numbers. And what you learn that what cholesterol actually is and why your body needs it, why LDL isn't always the villain, how to understand your blood test without panic, what really causes heart disease, and hint, it's not just cholesterol, the story behind statins and whether they're right for you, and how to shift from confusion and fear to confidence and clarity. And by the end, you'll feel empowered to understand your blood work, ask the right questions, and make informed, value-aligned decisions for your health. It isn't just a course about cholesterol, it's a mindset shift towards trust, clarity, and self-leadership. So I just wanted to bring this up again. If anybody wanted to have the discount code or the QR code. So understanding cholesterol has been one of the most confronting but most freeing experiences of my medical life. I've gone from feeling unsure and overwhelmed to feeling confident and clear. And now I'm passionate about helping others find that same clarity. Thank you for being here. I truly hope this presentation has helped you feel more informed, more empowered, and more hopeful about your own cholesterol journey. You're not alone. There's support, science, and community ready to walk alongside you. Thank you.